People don't make albums anymore. They don't make albums. They just try to sell a bunch of little quick singles and they burn out and they put out a new one and they burn out and they put out a new one. People don't even listen to a body of work anymore.
Yeah, just like Queen Bee said, making an album is a lost art in K-pop. We now have to accept that EPs, or even singles, are the new norms. And as someone who is living in capitalism, I would say that one of the few things that we can actually do in this crisis is to talk about the albums more, the music quality more, the artistry more. Because only when we change our standards or how we consume art, the capitalistic machines will adapt to our demands. So that's why I want to make this video titled The Art of Making an Album, where I go through the albums released in 2025 and rank them based on how great they are. But since full albums are becoming extinct in K-pop, I will also have to take into account the EPs as well. What I am not going to accept is the single album bullshit. Before we go in, let's go through the criteria. Firstly is obviously the cohesiveness of such albums, which is a problem that we all know in K-pop. K-pop companies just put random songs and make it into a playlist and shove it in our face nowadays. Like, no, we want a story and a cohesive body of work. You can showcase that cohesiveness through the production and lyricism, which lead to my second criteria of how well do the album authentically introduce or re-establish a unique identity for the artists? K-pop companies ran so quickly to catch up with the micro-trends that no one even bothers to be a little original anymore. We just got out of the Pink Pantherist K-pop era, and now have entered another Charlie XCX K-pop era. Like, can anyone have some personality, please? Number 3 is the quality of each track. I'm talking about production, lyricism, melody. How interesting can you make your song? How many bangers can you have in your album? Another thing before we go in is, of course, the ranking. The first tier is cult classic. I know music is subjective and everyone has their own taste, blah, blah, blah. But if you and I speak on the same frequency, my level of a K-pop cult classic album is like The Red, Perfect Velvet, Mix and Match, FE304, Break, Pink Tape. They are peak K-pop. I don't think I have heard any cult classic level of an album in this year yet, because if I did, I would have remembered it by now. But we'll see. The second tier is bangers. These albums tick all of the boxes. They have good production. The lyricism has personality. And they are a cohesive body of work. They make the artists stand out so much in this oversaturated scene. The only thing that doesn't make them into the first tier is because the first tier albums went an extra 110% all the way. The third tier is bops. These albums are cute. They are cohesive and tell a good story enough to create an identity for the artists. The songs are catchy and easy to come back to as well. But most elements in the production or melody are kind of playing it safe and don't really take risks. But sometimes making basic pop music is not something every K-pop artist can do nowadays. The fourth tier is okay. Like Jisoo said,
not bad but not good.
They are either albums with good songs, but as an overall record, not a cohesive body of work, or a cohesive project, but does cohesiveness really matter when the productions and melody are so boring and formulaic? The fifth tier is, it means that I'm falling asleep. I don't think they are a total flop to be in the bottom, but I can't see how they will help the artists stand out in this market with that all-over-the-place project with no sonic direction or compelling story. It's like they are trying to ride on the wave, but not actually starting their own wave. The bottom tier is
Skip.
Total flop. No originality, no identity. Ear-raping production. I also haven't remembered any album deserving this yet, but we'll see. So now, ladies and gentlemen, and individuals who don't identify as such, let's get into it. I want to start strong with the Blackpink girlies because I think this is their year with a group comeback coming up, and also with the members' solo projects. And also, because all of them will be in different tiers. So starting with them will set the tone for viewers where I'm coming from. First, with Amortage by Jisoo. I kinda appreciate the fact that she still pursues a solo music career and gives us a cute 4-track EP while still shooting a bunch of movies. And I feel like when other members release a full English album and adapt a more Western promotion formula, Jisoo having this cute Korean EP and a very K-pop comeback schedule creates a sweet, safe spot for me, and a lot of people too. But the thing that I appreciate most is the fact that it is a decent project with a solid concept. Combining Amor and Montage, she really explores different stages of an intimate love story with only 4 cohesive songs. From an immense crush with Earthquake, to really be fully in love with your love, to realize that she doesn't love that person anymore with Tears, and then accepting the breakup with Hugs and Kisses. And not just narratively, the cohesive sound is also shown in the bubblegum pop production. Most importantly, the mixing and vocal layering complements her voice so much better than whatever YG gave her with the Me single album, where they just left her raw vocals unfiltered. Actually, this overall EP is a huge step up from her debut. And I think that alone is good enough for me to put it in bops. They are not in higher tiers because the songs are catchy, but we can also hear how they are very basic pop sounds. And it's only 4 songs, so the revisitability isn't really strong. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think among the members, Jisoo knows where she wants to go very clearly, and doesn't want to step into territory that she's not familiar with.
Woke up in that morning again. Please don't call my phone again.
Next, we will have Lisa's Alter Ego. The album's weaknesses were discussed and pointed very clearly when it was released. The first problem is the execution of the alter ego concept itself. Alter ego is not a new concept in K-pop or music in general. However, the most important thing when introducing an alter ego to the audience is to answer the question of, why is there even an alter ego in the first place? For example, Nicki Minaj started her career with Cookie, an alter ego that helped her cope with childhood trauma, or later with Chun-Li, who is a good guy but always ready to cut throats when they try to paint Nicki as the bad guy. Then we have Harajuku Barbie, or Roman. A lot of Nicki's alter egos are born from her coping mechanism. And then we have Eminem created his alter ego Slim Shady as a way to express his darker, more violent, and very problematic thoughts. They can be distinguished from the main ego in their songs very clearly. Now back to Lisa. We have Vixie, Roxy, Kiki, Suni, and Speedy. I have a hard time grasping what created them in the first place. Of course, I have read through the concept posters and watched her visuals to know the difference between each one of them and what their personalities are. But are they really coming from her inner inspirations, or just another concept jacket to wear in K-pop? And the execution of the concept didn't really help to bring them to life either. Like, why doesn't Speedy have an MV, or visual like her sisters? And then Speedy, Roxy, and Vixie kinda sound so familiar that if you aren't told which B-side belonged to which alter ego, you really couldn't tell. Secondly, it is the cohesiveness. A lot of fans will try to defend with the argument that the album's name is literally alter ego, so of course she will try different and diverse sounds for each alter ego. But I think there's a way to do that and still create an effective narrative for the album. A lot of people were already pointing it out, but I want to take it further and actually propose a solution of how I would rearrange the tracklist and create a more natural flow. That's being said, I still think the album lacks an overall theme to tie all the songs together. Maybe adding some interludes between each alter ego will help. Just my suggestion. Now, the third problem that I have is Lisa's rap and vocal performance. Lisa was never a vocalist in K-pop, so of course will never be when she branches out to the West. And it was shown clearly in some songs, especially the collabs one. Like, I really appreciate her for helping Ray bring Born Again to life. But she really set herself up when putting her and Ray's verse back to back because the difference in power and vocal support was really shown. And even for the rap verses, her delivery is good and fiery, just like when she was in Blackpink. And that's a problem. When she was still a K-pop idol, having a good delivery and flow is good enough to be a good K-pop rapper. But now, as she branches out as a solo artist, lyricism and depth comes in first place. And the bars are kinda weak, not gonna lie. Now, in her defense, I also have a lot to say. I don't think she only sings about bragging and money and being a bad bitch like people say. If you listen to her album, there are also a lot of themes being covered, like love, sex, rebirth. And despite the album being incohesive, there's also some bangers, New Woman and Born Again are some of the best songs that Blackpink and the solos have released in their career. Kiki is really that bitch, and the best one out of the 5 alter egos. Suni is a lovely vanilla and singing about romance, but as I mentioned, sometimes Lisa's vocals fall short. And you already know how I can't distinguish Speedy, Vixie, and Roxy. Anyway, overall, there are interesting moments, and I appreciate her effort in giving us a concept, but the execution of the album can be much better. For now, I put her in okay.
Wanna rock with Jenny? Keep your head down, nails done like Jenny.
Okay, there are obvious reasons why Ruby is the most acclaimed project by Blackpink members, right? To put it simply, it balances a lot of what other albums lack. It has the diversity and sounds of Alter Ego, but also introduces a clear, cohesive story like Rosie and Amortage, with the 7 stages of birth, curiosity, love, faith, zenith, utopia, and legend. It has personal and introspective storytelling elements like Rosie, but also has some dancey and groovy production like Alter Ego. And most importantly, there are tracks from Ruby that I can really feel like it was made by her and for her only. Like for the other albums, I can tell that I have heard this sound before from other popular artists. For example, except from APT, any track from Rosie sounds really like a generic version of the pop girls who make white music and breakup songs like Taylor, Gracie, or Olivia. Or with Alter Ego, a lot of tracks sound like they belong to other artists than her. Like Ray and Tyla really owned her in the collabs. Or how Moonlit Floor is kinda another version of Doja Cat's Say So. Like Sabrina Carpenter's Espresso is also very influenced by the Say So sound, but her vocal delivery and flirty lyricism make her own it, which Lisa doesn't. For Jennie, she balances between originality and influence really well. Like, with the IE, doesn't sound like she tries to copy Jennie from the block with the sample, she creatively incorporated it with the wordplay and added some personal lyricism into it. Or even when Doechii ate her up with the verse, the extra L, the overall song still feels like a Jennie song. Zen and Like Jennie are obviously the most Jennie-coded songs ever. One has the world dancing to just her chanting and flexing with her name. But flexing isn't wrong when it's literally correct and catchy, right? Like no one else can execute like Jennie than Jennie herself. Then we have Zen, arguably her most experimental song ever. Personally, not my favorite, but I appreciate how Shem fought hard for it into the track list because it deepens her artistry so much more. Even for the B-sides, while not all of them are really interesting in terms of production, they all have a moment to shine because of how vulnerable and personal it is in crafting a story about who Jennie is. Soul City is the most successful one because of her mysterious love with Mr. General. Damn Right is my favorite and arguably the best song on the album. Twin explored her old friendship breakup. Like they all bring some kind of tea about who Jennie really is onto the table for us to gossip. Which does justice for what the album set out to do. Unveil the curtain to search for the brightest ruby, the hidden jewel of her identity and personality. The rollout of this album is kinda opposite to Alter Ego, in my opinion. Lisa knew how to pick such great singles for her album, but the entire project fell short when it was released. In contrast, Jennie scared the hell out of me with the singles. Mantra is a great single with a concept, catchy hook, and performance choreo, I guess, but the song itself has no interesting elements to it. And then Zen came out, which was a pleasant surprise and hyped me up, but it was not really a single. And then Love Hangover and Extra L were released and were good songs in their own right. But why are the sounds going from pop to experimental pop to R&B and then to rap hip-hop? I was so confused until the album release when I saw her vision. I don't know how to explain it, but they just fit right into the track list. Maybe someone could explain it better than me. She blended really well between pop, K-pop, rap, R&B, ballad, and even added some experimental moments in Zen or Starlight, which I appreciate. It is certified banger for me, but I don't think it is in that level of cult classic like the Red or Mix and Match yet. While I appreciate her cute experimental moments or how she blends genres, the majority of the elements are still familiar and in the safe zone, which is not a bad thing because debut albums are often where artists find their sounds first. She can go crazier for the sophomore album, but this is a correct first step. Now let's move to some groups albums, because here's when the conversation got a little bit interesting. Let's start with We Are by IDOL. Cohesiveness has always been the problem with IDOL's albums, and the only time they made a cohesive storytelling masterpiece was I Burn. It can't be because there are many producing members in the group and their styles are different, right? Because I Burn was literally when Minnie and Yuki started participating in album production. So I can't understand why they can't even do it again and always make such an incohesive body of work. And now, for this rebrand comeback, all members have now participated in the writing and producing process, which are kudos to them. But the problems are very much visible. All songs are too different sonically and lyrically without a clear tie to a theme, even though all of the songs are under a love theme. For example, Soyeon's Good Thing and Girlfriend approach love by rejecting the idea of boyfriend or ex-boyfriend and support the girlfriend's freedom with the late 2000s and early 2000s pop music style like autotune and EDM. And then Yuki's funky disco love tease immediately flip the table and reveal that they actually need love and can't wait to be teased by it. Minnie again continues proving that she's the most consistent writer of the group with the poetic, dreamy writing style of Chain. But at least she manages to follow Yuki's theme of being obsessed in love to the point that the narrator's ready to be chained by this person forever. Ooh, toxic Yuri. I have never thought that Mion could write the best song off an IDOL's album, but here we are today with Unstoppable. This song is so red velvet coated in the best way possible. The R&B, the melodies, the vocals, the ad-libs. And so far, the themes still continued and showcasing that IDOL's really obsessed and unstoppable in love until the final song. Congratulations to Shuhwa for debuting as a lyricist with If You Want. But why does it have to be another ballad breakup song being put at the end of the album? One of my favorite K-tubers, Chojimi, points out that these contradictions are for good reasons since it was their first album of a new era. Every member's involved in each track in the album called We Are. So, of course, the album being so different is to showcase the diversity in the we. And I respectfully disagree, because if that's the overall theme of the album, then it's kinda weak. Now, on a good note, individually, the songs are kinda more memorable in quality than some of their latest releases. Good Thing brings back that second gen's auto-tune back. The high note in Love Tease's bridge is so good. Chain still solidifies Minnie's consistent dreamy sound. Unstoppable is a masterpiece, as I already told you. If You Want is a bit bland, but at least it proves that Shuhwa can be a poet. Girlfriend is kinda generic pop, and I hope Soyeon never made those types of songs for the promoted B-side again. Overall, a slight step up from their post-Sujin releases, but not really enough to be a bop. LE SSERAFIM finished their Easy Crazy Hot trilogy with the Hot EP. I was a bit disappointed that they didn't end the trilogy with a full album like they did last time, until I realized that the latest album was not even a full album, but just with some old songs from previous EPs. But still, this EP is still way too short to be a trilogy ender. And it was even more underwhelming with the extinctions of bridges, because most of the songs in this EP have such great hooks and choruses that would have been even more elaborated with a bridge. They really burn the bridge. But at least based on the songs' names already, I can at least appreciate that this EP has a cohesive theme of being ready to be burnt down, rising from the ashes like a phoenix and maintaining the flame as stable as possible. Fire is not just destruction, but also passion and the energy to pursue it despite any hardship. It can be interpreted in both the context of a romantic relationship, but I also want to look at it through the lens of the hate train that they've been through during the last year. For me, I think it is their most cohesive project since their debut EP. And individually, their B-sides also followed the tradition of outslaying their title tracks as well. Come Over is viral with that choreo, but the real diva is obviously Ash, the song that encapsulates the album's overall concept the most. Overall, LE SSERAFIM is reigniting their fire slowly with this one, and the greatness is yet to come. But so far, it's a bop for how short it is. I want to talk about Meow right after Seraphim because the imagery of fire and burning passion is also shown a lot in the My Eyes Wide Open EP. But in contrast to LE SSERAFIM slowly reigniting their fire, Meow's flames just want to break the skies, fly as high as possible, and catch every opportunity they see. Just like the EP name, My Eyes Wide Open. The narrator realized their worth and confidence, and they just don't want to look at things from the rear view anymore. They want to take action. Maybe this passion was different because Meow's fire was coming from the fresh energy of a rookie and the desire to live lives to its fullest as young people, while the Seraphim's fire is the symbol of being burnt alive during the hate train during their successful era. The theme is shown pretty clearly in most of their songs, most well executed in Hands Up, Drop Top, and Lit Right Now, or in the more generic flexing songs like Body or the title track. I think Toxic is the weakest link of the EP, not necessarily because of the song itself, but how it's suddenly about a toxic relationship. Now, in terms of production, Hands Up and Body are probably the ones with the most exciting instrumentals and melodies that suit the girls' personalities the most. I think they should be the main tracks in each of the comeback rather than Toxic or Drop Top. However, while Meow and the Black Label are proving that they are at least trying to do something different and more creative with the formula than what Baby Monster and YG is doing, they still need to do more to be more than okay and be back on track again, like they mentioned. Now, let's do soloists again. I think we should follow the structure of 3 groups and 3 soloists. Let's start with Ms. Eve's I Did Bloom EP. The OG EP was released last year, but the deluxe was released in the beginning of this year, so I still counted. The concept of a deluxe version for an EP is so funny to me. K-pop is such an unserious industry. Nonetheless, Eve's really outdid herself with this one. The blend of R&B, dance pop, and pop rock production and sonic cohesiveness of this album is such a chef kiss, and definitely one of the best EPs I've heard. It's laid back and not really doing that drastic, maybe except for Viola, but it's effective and solidifies a unique sound for Eve. The album explores the theme of being constrained and bound by societal expectations or by relationships, and navigating the way to break free and bloom, hence the name. My favorite tracks were Gone Girl and See You in Hell, probably because of how cinematic the storytelling lyrics are. I mean, Gone Girl was basically inspired by the movie. And See You in Hell is a doomed lesbian trope. I really want to put her in the first tier, but I feel like I'm being biased. Am I being biased? You guys need to let me know. So far, I'll just put her in the banger because she's definitely no less than that.
You know me, I'm her. I'm her.
There's a reason why I always say Minnie is the most consistent songwriter of Idol. Because sometimes I feel like Soyeon often has to study the market trend a lot in order to craft a title track and negotiate its quality with the profitable trend adaptation. Or sometimes you can tell she makes a song just for the sake of a visual execution and suitable for performing. Yuki's upbeat songs often have very dry and generic production and repetitive choruses. And she loves quirky lines or vocal delivery, but they mostly aren't effective. I think Yuki writes better melodies for emotional songs. Both of them also have this problem of not having effective build-ups or transitions between parts of the songs, and the productions often have to switch up abruptly, especially between the first chorus and the second verse. This is what Minnie excels at. Her songs always flow cohesively, and you can always tell which is a Minnie song with her signature dreamy melodies, especially in the chorus. She never left her choruses dry and will always make it full as possible. And with her solo debut, she has successfully solidified that sound with the EP. The dreamy sound and sensual love lyrics of all songs are now achieving its fullest potentials when being performed fully by the siren voice of its writers. We need to talk and compliment Minnie's siren voice more because even though she's not the most technically competent vocalist, her tone or delivery always give me an eargasm. And can we also talk about how she can also write the most freakiest and sexiest lyrics, just like Soyeon? Yeah, themes of love obsession are well executed cohesively in this album. My only critique is that I wish I could do something differently in the third chorus, but overall, it's a banger that immediately establishes for Minnie an identity in her debut. The leader of ITZY made her solo debut with Air. I have a complicated relationship with the title track. While I absolutely love the synth pop production, there's something about Yeji's vocal delivery in this one that I don't think complement the song well. It sounds a bit straining if that makes sense. I think she performs vocally so much better in the B-side like Invasion, or 258. But overall, I love the cohesiveness in terms of both the production and the narrative in the album. The narrator is so deeply in love that can do the most extreme things, like kissing to the point of letting her lover take all her air away. She fears nothing, and is ready to embrace her feelings to the highest. It's a cute debut that's definitely a bop, but is the sound really outstanding and unique enough to establish Yeji as a strong soloist like the albums in Bangers tier? I think not, especially with only 4 songs in the album. You already know how I feel about the messy album rollout for their debut, but I want to give them more grace for the album itself because I do see their vision. First, with the overall theme of introducing themselves as the Uncut Gems, the stories of them being raw and young idols freshly debuting in this industry. I mean, they literally named their first track debut song. Even though it's a terrible song, the theme is well followed and supported by other tracks. Groundwork is about them setting the foundation for their career with the hard trainee periods. There They Go portrays their curiosity to explore the fresh world ahead of them as a new group. One Off is like them looking back and being nostalgic about that trainee period and the memorable moments they spend together. Secondly, there's some interesting production choices like the noise effect in the chorus of Groundwork or the UK Garage in the post-chorus of BTG. However, sonically, this album is not cohesive at all, as you can tell, which is the most important thing for me for an album. Most of the tracks can be executed by other groups because they don't have a really distinguishable sonic identity or strong vocal ability to stand out, besides the quirky lyrics and creative concept. Maybe it's to reflect their album's name, uncut and freshly found gems that will inevitably be rough and messy. And also, they really need to stop the terrible rappings. And that's why I think they are lower than the Idol, because despite the similar criticisms I have for both groups, Idol's vocal performance stood out way more and had more personality. So overall, I can see the vision and their attempt to establish an identity, but the execution can be better.
Let me show you that, no over me. That's that, show you that, no.
Out of the trilogy, Break is still that girl for me, but Forward is coming very close at second. With this trilogy, they finally master their mix pop sound and elevate it into the next level that is so different from the rest. I'm so glad that they believe and don't give up this sound just because they might struggle with it at first. This EP does not have many change-up sections like Break, but I don't think that's what mix pop is entirely about. It's not just about mixing different parts into one song, but also mixing different genres. The producers know what they're doing when blending that experimental, alternative, electronic, and R&B sound. And the girls also own the sound with their vocal ability to deliver such chef-kiss performances. This is why it's important to have a strong vocal lineup that is lacking so much nowadays in K-pop. Out of the albums, High Horse and Papillion are obvious standouts, but there aren't really any weak links in it. My only criticism is that the songs are a bit short, and I don't know why they haven't released a full album at this point of 3 years into their career. Overall, when K-pop is becoming so oversaturated at this point, creating your own niche and excelling in it is the key to really be relevant. For the ranking, remember when I say the albums in the Bangers tier need to go a bit crazy in order to move to the cult classic? This is how you do it and break limits.
I'm bad, girl, I'm bad, I'm bad at it.
Before we go in, can we at least appreciate the fact that most of the albums are longer than 3 minutes? And for me, this is their most cohesive special project since their full album, and arguably their most personal and introspective one. From the name IVE Empathy, I've really explored what empathy is for them through each track. Another favorite K-tuber of mine, which is Winter Rosie, brought a good point by grouping the tracks into 3 sections. The singles, Rebel Hearts and Attitude, are about believing that they are the empathy, the confidence, and the attitude, and how all of them are inseparable parts of their identity to survive the hardships in this society. KTO and Flu are about how they have no empathy for those who don't deserve it, either haters or toxic relationships. You Want to Cry and Thank You are them showing empathy for others, giving safe space for their listeners to cry and be vulnerable, or even for themselves to appreciate all the ups and downs that they've been through. Yeah, that's why conceptually, Thematically and emotionally, this is their best one. I love how Attitude is inspired by Wonyoung's Lucky Vicky mindset. My few criticisms are that I wish the production could be more dynamic, unique, and interesting. I know that IVE is not a group well known for really heavy or outstanding productions, but it would be better for this album to have a clearer sonic identity. I like a lot of their melodies, though, especially the bridge in You Wanna Cry. Overall, this EP is a bop. I did not expect less from a Red Velvet project. Actually, I even expected something even crazier from her. But I feel like in recent years, music-wise, they haven't explored anything new and experimental that much anymore. This EP, for example, plays into the safe territory of R&B. Don't get me wrong, Seulgi still very much owns and slays this, but it's just that my expectations for Red Velvet are incredibly high. Back to the album, it is a great continuation of her debut that solidifies her sounds and a cohesive project. Sonically, the R&B tracks are glued so well together. Lyrically, the album explored the narrative of how Seulgi, as the narrator, makes her lover seem like it's just all an accident that they fall in love with her, when in reality, she is the mastermind who has been calculating every move the whole time to make it look like that. Hence the name Accidentally on Purpose. She is innocent and perfect, but actually also dangerous and complex. Hence the title track, Baby, Not Baby. Many people would think that the narrator is deceptive to hypnotize the lover and not actually loving them. But when we dig deeper in later songs, she admitted that she calculates everything because she actually loves them and wants to be with them, that they are her weakness and driving her crazy. Our narrator is complex and not actually a composed mastermind. Overall, the EP is a banger.
Listen up, baby, it's been a long time.
Why do all of the Luna girls know what they are doing than 99% of the industry? Narratively, I feel like this album is the total opposite of Jisoo's album. Whereas Amortage follows the narrators from the initial crush to the breakup, this EP started with Chu being nostalgic and missing her ex and sad about her past kinda toxic relationship in Only Cry in the Rain. Then in Back in Town, it was revealed that her lover was actually her first love in the town that she grew up in, and she had moved to the city and is now coming back to the hometown after a very long time because she realized she never stopped loving them. You can see the emotions transitioning from sadness to joy and happiness, especially in the next tracks of Kiss a Kitty and J Tame. It is because Chu is relearning how to love her lover again and give it a fresh start for their relationship. No More, as the album closes, makes me feel like when she reconnects and loves her ex again, she also learns to reconnect and love herself again. I love a good storytelling album. While the synth pop sound is simple and kinda basic, I think Chu suits it so much with her soft melody and the airy instrumental. Maybe I just wish for something more exciting in the production, but it's a bop. When I say make songs for the art and not the chart, this is what I mean. Like imagine releasing a 15-minute short film for your music video. The title track, Icarus, is one of the most inventive K-pop songs in this year. With the album being them in a train station, but the album name being Club Icarus, the EDM, drum and bass sound throughout the albums really captures the feeling of going to an underground nightclub experience. I know that drum and bass and UK garage in general is a spoiled trend already in K-pop, but Artemis makes it so refreshing and authentic to them, and not just a cash-grabbing effort. While all songs are great, is it basic to admit that I like the singles Icarus and Burn more? Among their projects, I would still prefer Dal a bit more, but looking at the ranking right now, I feel like it only feels right to place this EP on the same bar with NMIX for how these projects broaden the soundscape of K-pop. The Luna girls just know how to get the jobs done. I have to be honest, I cannot remember the last time I experienced a cohesive ITZY project. Everyone was gagging at the Cunty album trailer. I was too, but I remind myself that I have seen this film before, thus not giving JYP too much hope because I know they don't know how to execute a cohesive theme. But with the title track's name, Girls Will Be Girls, I would expect they at least contextualize and dive deeper into their famous concept of self-confidence, self-assurance, and being unapologetically yourself without having to explain to anyone. But again, when I hear those snippets of the title track, I know that I will be left disappointed again. The repetitive chorus didn't land both sonically and narratively. If you want the simple chanting chorus, at least do something interesting instrumentally, or build enough substance lyrically from the verses and the choruses to give the audience somewhat of why you are saying, girls will be girls. But again, we are having some very generic lyrics, maybe some moments of female camaraderie are there, but still, very surface level. At least I like the dance break. Well, if it's just another gonna be like that, I just hope that they would at least follow it thoroughly in the albums with that dance pop and electro house production. Which they kinda did, with B-sides like Lock and Loaded, Kiss and Tell and Walk. Kiss and Tell is objectively the best one and should obviously be the title track, right? It has so much more personality sonically than the title track, and the other two are so unmemorable. But why the fuck is a love ballad Promise in the middle of the album? Why are we being sentimental in the middle of a cunty runway? Why don't you at least try to put it in the end of the album like other incohesive K-pop albums? I'm sorry, Midzy. I know you guys are always being defensive about people criticizing their art, but I don't think this album has that much revisitability. It is so ironic that Kiss of Life makes such good Black-inspired music, yet has a display of racism that caused the most outrage in K-pop history. I think that apart from Red Velvet, Kiss of Life is the group that I can rely on for an R&B track. Lips, Hips, Kiss is such a good song. The groovy and funky sounds are followed cohesively sonically by the B-sides as well. Among them, I think Slide is the highlight with so much dynamic production, and the weakest link is K, Bye, even though it's the promoted one, which is such a bad decision not just because of how dry it sounds, but also communication-wise. Why are you releasing a generic dissing single when you just commit one of the worst cases of racism in K-pop? Anyway, I want to praise the girls' vocal performance as well because it added so much personality to the soundscape. Natty's curvy, sexy tone suiting the R&B is what we already know, but Belle's Ariana Grande vocal and harmony makes it so much richer. The rap from Julie doesn't sound offensive or sudden at all, and slides smoothly right in the flow of the songs. Overall, I am not using this to defend the girls' actions. I am not even accepting their apologies because it was not even my place to do that. But it's such a shame when they can release good music. I think Tilt as the album was the same case with Seulgi's EP in the sense the girls own the sound and create a cohesive album, but I just expect something more crazy because it's Red Velvet. Well, I mean, at least concept-wise, it is crazy. Justice for the oyster. I love how their lesbianism scares the shit out of conservative Koreans. Meanwhile, Tilt as the song is kind of facing the same problem with Girls Will Be Girls by ITZY, in the sense that the verse and pre-chorus have such a strong build-up that give people an expectation for a satisfying chorus, but the repeated words did not land well. However, overall, Red Velvet, as always, polished their synthy and R&B production. Damn, a lot of girl groups want to go to the club lately. Vocal-wise, when there's only two of them, we can see the gap of how Seulgi's vocal is much stronger in the main course of the record, whereas Irene's vocal doesn't add much personality alone until the harmony, which is what she always does well. This EP is not Red Velvet's best, but in this ranking, they are a bit higher as usual. I will have to defend my girls with this one because I feel so bad for them. Just right after they got out of being attached and compared to NJZ by the public, their concept is now being compared to another group, which is All Day Project, that has their ex-members in it. And music-wise, their title track is also getting criticized for the repetitive chorus, which I understand and agree that this is kinda their weakest title track. But the French house instrumental and the anime sample makes the songs less formulaic for me. In fact, zooming out, ILIT is one of the few fifth-generation girl groups who know how to execute a cohesive album. Among the B-side, Jellyus and Bamsapung are the standouts for me. Everyone is complaining about how they're stuck with one formula, but in their defense, they were deemed as a cheap copy of another group for their entire career and quote-unquote only chasing trends. So of course, they have to stick to this dreamcore concept and sound to deepen their identity and show that this has always been who they are. Sure, this EP might not be really new or revolutionary for them as the artist, but for me, it's still a banger and shows that they really commit to their identity.
Real bad business, that's dirty work.
So that's it for now. I am planning for a second part by the end of the year as a wrap-up of 2025. But looking at the ranking right now, do you guys think I should make it soon to include some other less popular and Nugu groups? Because I feel like I'm being too generous for not including any group at the bottom tier, and there's definitely some skips if we dig deeper into those less popular groups, or even boy groups. I should also do male artists to practice some DEI. Anyway, for the latter half of the year, there's some definitely albums and comebacks that I am looking forward to. We have Rosie Deluxe, aespa comeback, Soojin comeback, NJZ if they somehow to make a comeback. Blackpink and Twice is also coming, Wendy solo comeback after leaving SM, and many others. But for now, leave the comments of what you think about my ranking. Did I get it right? Or completely wrong, and where would you place it? Thank you. Goodbye, and see you in the next video.